And we are live now. Hello, welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and run through some of these ads real quick.
Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Huh? So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
First world, come in and take a seat. Pay us no attention, it's all conspiracy. We have satire and parody, some funny, some perverse. If none of it's offensive to you, you'd be the first.
Fairview's coffee has mysteriously gone missing. Mayhem ensues when strange, coffee-craving zombies plague the city. Detective Mickey Potatoes, an overworked public servant, uncovers why ordinary citizens are losing their minds and how to stop the coffee apocalypse. But it involves the mafia. And when you're dealing with mafia crime families, nothing is ever easy. The mafia controls everything in the city, including the police, including him. If he breaks the mafia, they will break him. So, the city is without coffee. The city is burning before his very eyes, but he's powerless. Detective Potatoes has the power to stop the coffee apocalypse, but if he does, he could lose everything.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to It's All Good. My name's Doc, and we have Alex with us today. Hey, Alex, how you doing?
Very well, thank you. How are you? I mean,
Oh.
the apocalypse anything without coffee is definitely an apocalypse.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Amy isn't able to be here with us today, but we're going to go ahead and talk to Alex about a book he's got published out and has been out for a couple of years now called Dragon Whisperer. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Throw it up on the screen here. You want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself before we go ahead and get into your book and introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Alex De Luca. I'm a husband. I'm a dad. I'm a musician. I love my books. I love my comics. And I enjoy writing comics. I enjoy lettering comics. I enjoy story. And, coffee, beer.
All the finer things of life.
Correct.
That is incredible. Okay, well, let's go ahead and jump right in then with both feet and start talking about Dragon Whisperer. I had an opportunity to take a look at this that you so gratefully sent me a link for. It's a very interesting steampunk-ish type of a fantasy world you're developing here. If I was able to try to sum it up with a sentence, can you go ahead and tell us maybe an overview about it and what inspired this idea from you?
Well, sure. You're correct. It's a fantasy steampunk, and lots of things inspired it. Lots of my favorite stuff that I like to read. There's of course the Tolkien's, the C.S. Lewis, and some fantasy and science, and a lot of science fiction, particularly Octavia Butler, and most of all, my favorite author, probably from then and now, my favorite two authors are Jane Yolen and John Bellairs, and they're very much the muses of my heart. So all of these amalgamated into inspiration for me. So the main character is a young woman of very much multi-ethnic. She's based on my best friend in elementary school, who was so smart, who still is. She was so smart, and she inspired me to be smart and clever and witty. And so the main character is based on her, and I wanted to do a fantasy. And I like dragons. Who doesn't like dragons? They're like the pizza of
oh yeah, no, you've got to have dragons for fantasy.
That's right. You got to have dragons for fantasy. And then how the steampunk came about, I really wasn't into steampunk at all. But then my favorite band, Rush, their last album called Clockwork Angels, it's their only full concept album, and it was a steampunk concept album. And then Kevin J. Anderson writes books. In fact, they're over here. And Neil Peart, the late Neil Peart of Rush, wrote novelizations based on it. And
I own that book.
Yeah, good stuff. And if you hopefully you own the album. So then, I thought steampunk is very nice, and it's been described as it's very romantic, and it's sort of a view of the future from the past. So I kind of dug that. I've never dressed up. I never gotten into anything else steampunk. It's just a very romantic thing. A lot of leather, not in a bad way. And
I like the different amalgamations of metal that they use and the gear, clockworks, and it's almost like a new version of the Celtic knotwork in mechanical form.
Right. Exactly. That's very that was very articulate. Yes. A lot, very much like that. There's a lot of engineering that goes behind all this stuff that you see.
Oh yes, no, yeah, trying to go ahead and put a world together. I absolutely can remember. I'm still putting a world together, so no, I'm right there with you. I'm developing a comic book of my own, but yeah, it's definitely a lot more steps than I ever imagined. When I got into it, I figured, let me just hire an artist and I'll hire a writer and we could just put a comic book together. It'll be easy. No. Yeah, it'll be easy. They said it'll be fun. They said anything but easy. Yeah. Anything but easy. It is fun.
When you see the fruits of your labors, that's super fun. That's super fun.
You're able to print it out and hold it in your hand and have the first, what you created is definitely rewarding all on its own. Now, getting there, I didn't realize there was as many steps as there was in getting there. You not only have to have the line artist or the concept artist, and you go into the inker and the colorist and
Mhm.
the layout, the writer, the scripter, the storyboarder, and a lot of these can be multiple hats worn by the same person. But one of
Mhm.
the disciplines of comic book that I was unaware of even halfway through the creation of my first issue was a letterer. That is a discipline and a talent all of its own that I've been a avid comic book collector since the 80s. I have boxes upon boxes of comic books, and
Mhm.
yeah, once they hit my collection, they don't ever go anywhere. That's one of
Right.
those
Yeah.
things. And with the multitudes of books I've read over my life, I never actually realized that it was how much detail goes into the placement of the bubble, the shape of the bubble, how the words break down to tempo the reader and in the story, and just the discipline that goes into just the aspect of lettering. And that's something you do as well. Is that right? Is that what you mentioned?
I do. I do. I got into lettering thinking first I'm very glad that you realize that, because that's something that every letterer wants to hear, that it is indeed an art. And
When I
it's
hired
it's
my
it's
first
crucial.
letterer, that's what really transitioned my book and allowed me to view it as a comic book and not just this uh, book of pictures we put together.
Right. It's just a collection of art. It ties the whole thing together. And yes, I do letter, and you're right. It's the placement, and if you have a long phrase, do you decide to put it in one big speech balloon, or separate it in two? Is there enough of a break within that phrase to warrant the separation of a speech balloon into another speech balloon, and that kind of thing? And if there's going to be narration, there's certain rules, but then if you're consistent within your own book, you could do your own thing. There's no law. Uh, but are you going to do a caption with quotation marks? Are you going to do thought bubbles? Those kinds of things. So yes, lettering is absolutely an art. I mean, you can get the best art, line art, and inking and coloring, and if you have lousy lettering, it is the weakest link in the chain, and it's going to break.
It really it distracts from the reading and the immersion that you get from the comic book. That
Hmm.
it's yeah, it's one of the weaker links. All
Yeah.
the way down to even separating and carrying a bubble from, or a text bubble from one panel to another when you're trying to do zoom ins. And
Right.
one of the big things I noticed was pacing. Somebody that will pace the way it's intended to be
Hmm.
read without getting the
Hmm.
use of punctuations like commas and things like that we don't have the time for anymore in this common world.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. The pacing is crucial to lettering. You can have a number of balloons inside of a given panel, but if you place them such that maybe the last one is further away from the first two or three, that brings with it something of a pause right there inside the panel, just how the speech balloons are laid out. So
Mhm.
it's a spatial art.
Yes, and even some letters go as far as doing the sound effects or the extras that's
Right.
outside of the thought bubbles, and what helps add to the, once again, immersion into the
Mhm.
comic book itself.
Right. Oh yes, the sound effects are definitely the letter's job. That's where you can get fun and creative with like big old font and uh, kind
With
of
the
an
POW
offset.
and the zoom and the yeah,
That's right.
we've associated with comic books for so long, and it took I'm kind of ashamed as a fan to say it took me that long to actually create my own book to
Hmm.
realize that's a discipline all on its own.
It is very much so. It is. Yeah.
That's yeah, absolutely incredible. So now how many issues of Dragon Whisperer do you currently have in print?
10 issues. 4 issues which comprise volume 1, which is this guy right here. This is the trade paperback of volume 1, right here. And then volume 2 is 6 issues, and all 6 floppies have hit store shelves, and the trade is right now finishing up at the printer, so it should be out very shortly. We're gonna have our Red 5 Comics gonna have a big booth at Comic-Con. So, but when it comes out,
which Comic-Con are they going to be at?
Oh, Comic-Con, San Diego. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to go
Yeah.
ahead and be clear about that. I'm rather new to this side of the industry, so
Right.
that was a big one
Right.
then, evidently.
There's various other there's Chicago Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con. You name the city, pretty much every city has a Comic-Con, but there's only one Comic-Con, and that's San Diego. And you don't even have to say San Diego. When somebody says Comic-Con by itself, they're referring to San Diego.
Gotcha.
The granddaddy of them all. Yeah.
Definitely have to keep that one in mind. We've been to a couple of our own, and I think Amy's going to the Chicago one here upcoming.
C2E2.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, I was there last year with in a table. I loved it. It was wonderful.
Yeah, I'm unfortunately not going to be able to make it. I'm looking into there's one coming up in Orlando I'm planning to go to later on in the year.
Oh, great.
But you've got 10 total issues. All of them are already completed, ready to go, and the last one is at the printer, you say. So if
the trade paperback, of the second 6-issue volume is at the printers. But all of the floppies and the first volume trade is all available. You can go right there to the website, red5comics.com.
red5comics.com, Dragon Whisperer. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll find them all laid out very nice and pretty here. These are the second 6 then, right?
Correct. These are the second 6. The first one is just called Dragon Whisperer. The second one's called Dragon Whisperer, The Search for Obsidian. And then if you read it, you'll know why it's a search and what this obsidian is.
And then the third one is another search for obsidian.
That's issue 3.
The whole series goes into the search for obsidian.
Correct. It's a quest. Both of these volumes are a quest. Definitely it's a quest with the heroes, the antagonists, but not everybody's 100% good and not everybody's 100% bad.
Oh yes, there's always a gray area right there in the middle that always seems to be where everybody else falls and everybody just doesn't realize it in most cases.
Yeah, these are. I try to add some depth to a character as much as possible.
And Dragon Whisperer is 100% your creation. Your thought, your idea, your scripting. You're the creator of Dragon.
I'm the creator. I'm not the artist. I'm the creator, and so I conceived of the plot. I scripted the story. I hire artists. The main artist being Glenn Fernandez. Glenn Fernandez created the design. I'm a terrible artist. I took a lot of pictures of things that I like. When I wrote the script, especially at the beginning, I went nuts with reference screen captures. Absolutely, I didn't touch anything AI. I just want to be upfront about that, and I won't. But going to Getty Images is not a problem. It's just this is what I have in mind as an idea, or I look up a female model. It says here's an idea I had for the main character or an actor. This is what I had for this character, and then I write that all in the script, and then the artist is going to be the artist, and then I make sure I say, but you do you. You're the artist. Keep in mind,
I hired you for a reason.
Right. That took the words out of my mouth. I hired you for a reason, and the reason is not to just open my brain and do exactly what's in my brain. Is to interpret it. And I'm always very positively surprised with everything that he does. It's like every page that comes in, all of the artists. I've worked with 3 different artists, Glenn Fernandez, Mauricio Caballero, and Eduardo Garcia, and all terrific artists. And but Glenn, he did the design. He came up with everything that you see is because of Glenn, and he's inextricable to Dragon Whisperer. He's just fantastic.
That's incredible. Now, where did you find your artists? Which channels did you use in order to find them?
I went on deviantart.com and I typed in, and this was like 2017, 2018 or so. I did, well, there's a little bit of a brief history before this, but I did steampunk comic, and then I got lots of hits. So then I was looking at all this stuff, and I said, oh, that's good, man, that's not so good, that's okay, that's a little bit too much this, a little bit too much that. Then I saw this one of Glenn Fernandez, and it was a steampunk Batman. Now, I still get goosebumps when I think about it. If you look up DeviantArt, Glenn Fernandez, his handle, I think, is Glenn FX, as in special effects, FX, and you look up steampunk Batman, Glenn Fernandez, you're going to see this ludicrously cool Batman, and he's got the whole thing. He's got the, there's lots of goggles in steampunk, so he's got the goggles, and he's got the cool leather vestment with all the buttons and everything, and all the rivets, a lot of rivets in steampunk. But the thing that drew my eye right away was there was like sort of pull-out wings, but the wings, they were leather wings, and they had a proper armature. And not only that, on top of the wings, the top of the wing, they had a cogwheel, several cogwheels all along, and then a cable on top of the cogwheels. So I said, okay, this guy thought of proper engineering. Stuff doesn't just happen because of magic or whatever. That's the one. Look at that. Look at the detail that he put in to the cogs, and this is old. He'll probably look at this. This is 2008. Look at the detail that he put into the engineering of this. This potentially can work in the real world or not. But the fact that nobody told him just to put cogwheels and a pull cable at the top of the wings, because nobody told him that, but he did it. So
and functionally, I can see how it would. Yeah,
there's engineering here. So when I saw that, I said, I got to get this guy. So I contacted him. We worked out the page rate. I drafted a contract, and now he did everything of all first 4 issues, and he did the 3 of 6 of the second volume. So 7 issues later, and he did all the covers. 7 issues later, he just is this. Every page I got from him was like absolutely amazing. I mean, almost never. He did all these covers. Almost never did I ask for a change. Very, very, very seldom. So it was truly a gift to be working with him, and this comic would quite literally not be a comic without Glenn.
It's amazing to be surrounded by such incredible talent like that.
Truly.
What else do you want to go ahead and share with us about the comic? Can you give us kind of a little bit more about it? I did read the first and second issues, so I'm aware of a bit more than most of the viewers that we have.
Okay.
What's going on with that dragon, and why is she so important to the story? Can you share that with us?
I can. Okay, so let's see, without spoilers. So they're okay. So the young heroine, her name is Rosalinda Eberhardt. She's 13 years old. That's her right there. This is the
That's
issue
when she
6.
gets older. So yeah.
Right, slightly. So if you go to
yeah.
Right. This is her when she's
her.
Right. That's her. She's like I said, she's based on my best friend in elementary school, whose name is also Rosie, also multi-ethnic, and so that's her. And so I created her as a character, and I put a lot of time into the character creation. I looked to see what was out there, and I tried to do something different. And what I saw with a teenage young character is a lot of snarkiness in this world. A lot of snarkiness. It seems like if you're going to have a young teenage character, you have to make her or him a very sort of a snarky smartass. And right, relatable. But that's not what I made her. She has elements of snark, but she's not a snarky person. I'm going to say it's going to sound funny, but she's like me. Except the girl. I'm a short guy. I'm nothing special. If I were in a fantasy environment and there was a time in which I'd have to get into a fight, I'd be scared. I would probably try to avoid the fight, But if I had to, I would fight. If there were a fight. If I were in an argument with someone, I would try to end the argument at the best possible way, trying to avoid being a smartass. However, if I had to be a smartass and if it fulfilled a purpose, I would be a smartass. So I made, and one other thing is, I enjoy life, I enjoy story, I enjoy friendship and conversation and over a drink, and happiness and love and that kind of thing. So I wanted to instill in Rosalinda this innocent joy, this innocent joy of life. So tragedy happens to her in her life early on. Enter this airship captain. His name is Alexander Falk, and he is on a quest for reasons to find and kill a dragon, and there's only one left, and for reasons it is impossible to get to, except for Rosalinda. Well, the name of the comic is Dragon Whisperer, so that should tell you something.
We can read into
put one put one and one together, and then you can figure that out.
Context.
So right, exactly. So she's brought onto the airship, and then the quest begins. And then, as they say in the movie King Kong, action and adventure and the thrill of a lifetime. It's got everything. It's got dragons. It's got steampunk automatons. It's got floating sky islands, like you see right there. There's Captain Falk there, and there's one of the other sort of creatures. There's all kinds of creatures in here, and most of them are sort of cybernetically steampunk enhanced in a way. You can see he's got a cybernetic eye there, and he has wings that were added. There's the if you couldn't tell by looking at him, there's the bad guy, and there's the bad guy's hench goblin, right? And there's the bad guy's airship, which is like it's the destroyer of steampunk.
Then you can't have steampunk without an airship.
Oh no, forget it. Absolutely
you
not.
Can't have fantasies without dragons. So, ta-da!
That's right. It's a fantasy steampunk. So it's a quest, and you think it's going to go one way. You're led to believe it's going to go one way, but because at the core of the story there's a humanity to it, and then people can change.
The Kansas City Shuffle.
Right, and then Jen King, who's the proprietor of this comic book shop, Space Cadets in Houston. She's a massively known and respected and somewhat powerful comic shop owner. She's got all kinds of podcasts. She's wonderful. When she reviewed it, she said, "This comic might make you cry." And I said, "Oh, that was it." That when she said that, someone of her stature in the industry said this might make you cry, and not in a bad way, because a human being could be so driven towards one goal without the thought of how that goal affects anybody else. And then when it finally happens, when you're finally there and all the time has passed that got you to that point, and then there it is, very human things can happen. And that's what happened here. So you got to read it. You have to read it.
It's definitely a good read. Yes, I'm gonna finish looking through what I've got, and there's a few questions I still have. I was left on a little bit of a cliffhanger there. It was a good wrap up summary, I think, of the tease that's to come of the Dragon Whisperer.
Yes.
Now, the production of this, what kind of hurdles did you run through as far as getting this published? Did you do it all? Did you do it by yourself in the beginning before you got picked up by Red 5?
No, I didn't do it. I have not done any crowdfunding, and I didn't do any self-publishing. I worked with another artist on something of a similar story before this, but it wasn't steampunk. It was sort of Edwardian, Robert Louis Stevenson-esque. No airships, all terrestrial based. And then I had some work done, and I had a few nibbles from publishers, but then it didn't quite work out. So I let it sit for a while. Then I was playing with more ideas. And then I said, okay, I'm going to change everything. I'm going to change characters. I'm going to make it fall into a steampunk. I'm going to completely make it in my own world. So it freed me from obeying certain stigmas and rules of an established world. So I made up my own world, and that was very freeing. And then knowing what I know of publishing, how it's quite different than it used to be. Once upon a time, way back when, a writer could submit a script to a publisher, and it was possible that they would look at it and maybe sign it and assign an artist to you. But that's not really how it is right now in the small press world. What they want is something fully formed,
Finished.
So right, finished, but not maybe. I couldn't afford financially right at the beginning to finish an entire volume and submit it. But what I could do was finish an entire issue. So the entire first issue was 100% done before I submitted to any publishers. I made sure it was polished. It was great. It looked great. And then I submitted it. And I was actually blessed to get a lot of bites. And one publisher, their response was a contract with an advance. But I didn't go for that one because they wanted to own everything outright. And I said, nah, no, thanks. Thank you, but no, I still want to retain ownership, but let's see if we can. So I went, so Red 5 offered the best deal, and I signed with them, and they delivered. They're a small publisher, so it's not like they have the power of, certainly not the Marvels or the DCs, and still not the Dark Horse, Boom, IDW, Dynamite, all of those. They don't have that kind of power, but they are with the major distributors. You'll see them in Diamond Distribution. You'll see them at Simon & Schuster. You could see their books at a Barnes & Noble. So that was good enough for me. And,
no, go ahead.
Okay, so I submitted to them. I signed, and they said great. And then what I did is I just saved and funded, and I did other things to make money to pay my artist, and that worked out. And here I am 10 issues later. And it was the momentum was going. It was slow going. It took years to get from issue number 1 to issue number 6 of the second volume. That being 10 issues later, but it happened. And all the artists that I work with were fantastic.
How many years did it take you to produce 10 issues after landing the first issue? So I guess it would be 9 issues. How fast are you moving? Like one a quarter, or?
Well, they didn't start even soliciting until, well, the first volume. It's kind of like a band.
The first volume is the first 4 issues, right?
The first 4 issues, right?
Okay.
It's kind of like when back in the days of albums, when a band does a first album, that first album can take years for them to do. And if it's anything close to a hit, then the record company says, I'm gonna say an antiquated term here, but then the record company says, now this is where we separate the men from the boys, and forgive the gender specificity of that term. But what I mean by that is the record company says, okay, that's a great first album, and I know it took you years, but now it's time for a second album, and you got 5 months. So then the musicians are like, oh my God, it took us 5 years to do the first album. Now they want us to do it in 5 months. So that's how it went. The first volume, it took, I got to know my artist in late 2017, and it wasn't published until March of 2020. Horriblest timing in the world. I know, pandemic. I mean, just, it was terrible. But so it was 3 years from the moment that I concocted the plot to the point of having an artist sign a contract, all the way to issue number 1 coming out. Now, okay. What is the ideal situation for publishers is if you're going to have a volume, a certain, a series of issues with closure, like volume 1, issues 1 through 4, that has closure. That's 1 volume. They're going to want all 4 of them print ready before they even solicit issue 1, and that makes sense. That way, they're not on the spot if something is late with the distributors.
Yeah.
So that took, how many was that? That was late 17 to, so almost 3 years, 2.5 years. And then the second volume had to go a lot faster, and that's why it ended up having 2 different artists for the last 3 issues, so that while one was working on one, another one can work on the other. So that's what happened there. Second volume, that was that when there's nothing that cures writer's block better than a deadline. That I found out, and I was behind, and that's where I told my wife. I said, I need to have a hotel room for the weekend by myself, and then she got it. And then writing when you're completely in the zone, what happens? And I'm speaking for myself. I didn't eat. I didn't do anything. I was just writing, and my body was so in it that it's just a funny thing that happened. I had this thing called a lumen. You blow into it, and then it measures your body fat. And never once did I have almost 0% of or carbohydrates or whatever, or like an extremely low amount of body fat until after that weekend. And I was just writing. I was sitting there doing just typing away on my thing, looking at notes, going to the internet, drinking water, not doing anything, just writing. So when you're in the zone and when you're under the gun with deadlines,
do you have a tendency to get things done?
You have a tendency. That's right. Hyper focusing. Frank Frazetta, he had months and months and months. The fantasy artist, Frank Frazetta,
Mm-hmm.
he had months and months and months to do any one of his covers or gorgeous paintings, and he always waited until the last weekend because procrastination.
Reasons.
Right, because reasons. And then when he was done, his family always said he would literally collapse for 48 hours of uber exhaustion. So I understand. So yeah, the second volume had to be a little bit more under a deadline of okay. So now you're a comic professional, you have to act like it. When the publisher says, "Where are the pages?" Have the pages, or have a really good reason why you don't. So yeah.
Yeah, that's where they separate the wheat, the shaft from the wheat, I guess they call it.
I like that one better. I'm going to use that now.
Now, for any, we've got a lot of indie creators and indie enthusiasts and wannabe indie creators, people that are just now starting to create that follow on this channel. Is there any kind of advice or direction you can give them once they finish their first or even second issue on how to toss it out there? There's a lot of, in my experience now, a lot of publishers that do not accept any unsolicited material.
Yeah, and that's a thing. A lot of publishers still do. What I did, and I've been doing comics for a long time, but this is my first solo and self-owned complete creation. But I haven't done a lot. So speaking for myself, I honed my craft, and you just have to do that. If you want to be a writer, the first thing you have to do is write. So just write a lot, and then completely acknowledge that you're going to suck at the beginning. Everybody sucks. Leonardo da Vinci, he was a lousy artist when he was a little kid. Everybody's terrible. So you're going to be bad, but you're going to get better if you keep doing it. So. But you know that.
10,000-hour rule. That's
right. All of you indie creators, you already know that. I'm not telling something right now that you don't already know. The biggest thing, other than having a complete willingness and understanding that you're going to start at the bottom, absolute dirt, below bugs, you're going to be starting at the bottom. The best advice that I can impart is finish something, and you can solicit review from people that you trust during the process, but for the most part, I would say finish something so that you have something that's finished. You have a piece of work, and I use the word closure again, that has some closure, that has beginningness, middleness, and endness in it, so that it's a complete and fully formed work. Even though it's one issue of maybe many, a comic book issue in the traditional sense, a floppy comic book issue like this one right here, it has a bit of closure to it. So do that before you go whole hog with submitting. I've never done a Kickstarter or any kind of crowdfunding.
And
So
that's impressive.
well, thank you. I consider myself, I suppose I consider myself a little bit lucky, though I will always caveat that with I work my ass off. I work my ass off, and I'm not rich. I paid my illustrator out of pocket, and when I first started this, I said, well, I can't afford this. And then a very wise person said to me, Alex, what's your favorite car? And I probably said something stupid. I'm not a car person. He goes, no. Favorite fantasy car? I said, a cherry red Ferrari Testarossa. And he says, okay, how much is that? Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Because what if I told you, okay, how much does it cost for you to publish your comic? Oh, I don't know, $10,000, whatever. I mean, and that's just the number I'm throwing out. Because what if I told you you can have a Ferrari Testarossa for $10,000, but you could have it in 3 months? So you could take the time to make that money in 3 months. And I said, okay, if you're telling me I can have a car that's hundreds of thousands of dollars for $10,000 and I have 3 months to do it, I am then given the impetus to do something above and beyond way above and beyond my comfort zone to try to make that extra money. So what do? I have a regular full-time job. I also have a family I have to support, but I did other jobs. I'm a musician, so I did more gigs than I normally would. I did odd jobs here. I sold stuff. I some comics that hurt, but I sold some comics. I just made the decision what was important to me. So that's sort of the answer to how I was able to do it without doing a Kickstarter, without doing crowdfunding. I did it on my own, and nothing against it. I didn't have any experience with it, but I do have experience working and making some money. So that's what I did.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I self-published my first issue, and I'm about to release my second issue. And I did two campaigns. One succeeded, one didn't. But I didn't even launch the campaigns till I was finished with issue number 1.
Right.
Just to try to reimburse myself what I already put into it. And yeah, it's a lot bigger than what I thought it was going to be coming into it as this will be fun. So I came into it with a slightly different attitude.
I mean, I hope everybody that goes into it thinking it's going to be fun holds on to that. I don't want to say it's not fun. It's fun. I mean, if you go to my Dragon Whisperer Facebook page, you're going to see a lot of great pictures at conventions, and therein is the moment of, okay, this is the tangible benefit, because it's kind of lonely. You finish your comic and you give it to your publisher, and that's it. It now belongs to the world. It belongs to them as much as it belongs to you. And I've gotten lots of emails, and I've gotten lots of video sent to me. I've had lots of fan art. This one dad of this really young kid says that Dragon Whisperer is his son's favorite comic, and then his son did a review of it. This little boy did a review. I'm like, oh my gosh, but the greatest I've ever heard, because my young protagonist is a young female, is when young girls said, I can relate to her. I'm like, ugh. And it's like, it's devastatingly beautiful thing to hear, because when somebody's relatable, then it's like, okay, I didn't create somebody cookie cutter. I didn't create somebody one dimensional. I didn't, and then when somebody says I can relate to that person, and especially a young woman of multi-ethnicity who doesn't look like a billboard, who looks like a human being, non-airbrushed person. It's that is the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. And then a mother and daughter came rushing to our booth in San Diego right when the doors opened, and I said, I want to meet the person that did Dragon Whisperer. And it says, I literally oozed into a puddle on the floor with joy. I was in tears of joy. It was so great. I got a picture of them. It was wonderful. So I tend to answer questions with long answers. Apologies, group, but it is
No
fun.
apologies. We love to learn and we love to conversate. So no, that is absolutely you on the right place for that. Let's go ahead and say it's all good.
Okay, good. Yeah, just it is fun. It is fun. You know, you'll be tired and you'll be lonely, and even if you're an introvert, you'll still be lonely, and you will say, you know, WTF? You know, what do you want from me? I'm working as fast.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm working as fast as I can. What do you want? How come you didn't draw it like that? How come you didn't letter it like that? What do you mean you want me to write it like this? You're going to have those moments. And then there's going to be, if you ever play golf and you have the worst day of your life, there's going to be that one swing and that one perfect arc where there's no slice or no hook that lands right on the green, and you go, okay, now I remember why I like to play golf. And I haven't played golf in forever. But that's the thing. It's gonna be a lot of like grumbling, and then you're gonna get that page with that writing where you're gonna go, you did pretty good, kid. And then the artist go, you know what, you got my scripted idea and you did something better. And then you're gonna do the coloring. Says, I never would have thought of that, but I'm glad you did because you did it better than me. And then if you have, you know, I'm the letterer, so letterer me sometimes wants to punch writer me in the face, but because writer me writes too damn much, and letterer me says, what do you want from me, you idiot? Don't stop writing so much. So I edit.
We don't need this many. We can shorten.
Right. Yeah. I edit like crazy when I letter. But then, you know, and then the lettering, all of that, if it comes together, it's like several pendulums going like this, and then it's that moment where they all meet and they're perfectly aligned like the planets. Then you go, oh, okay. I love comics again.
The cost of creation.
The cost of creation. And then that's just the creation of it. And then when you get into the actual professional publishing world of it, I'm telling you now, nobody is prepared. I wasn't, and I'm not young. Nobody is prepared for what that will do to you. You have to make a decision. I mean, I'm speaking for myself. I needed to make a decision that it was going to be really hard. 2 steps up and 1 step back of various entities. There's the publisher, there's the editor, there's the distributor, there's the printer, and if there's are various principals within your publishing company, they might be at odds. And there's deadlines, and there's shipping, and then there's supply chain, and there's all of these reasons where it seems like it's not going to happen. And somebody had a great simile or analogy for it. Just imagine that you're climbing up a pole, but the pole has a little bit of grease on it. So it's like you really have to work hard, and you have to keep going.
Work fast.
You work hard and work fast, and you're going up this greased pole, and you're making progress, but it's really slow going. But the minute you stop and you hold on to it, you start sliding down. And the only way to go back up is to keep going. So you got to keep going. And then for me, you might think I have 10 issues that are in stores, that I have succeeded and all that. You have to draw a line of the sand for yourself at one point and say, once you pass that point, everything else is going to be easy. So I made a line in the sand. I want my comic book out in stores, and if I make some money at it, it's great. So I've passed that line in the sand. So here's what it looks like on the other side of it for me. I have made way less money than I ever put into it. Way less. I mean, 1/10. That's the facts of small press.
Yep.
And that's it.
It's a passion project.
It is a passion project. Now, so is it losing money? No, because I've made a choice. I've made a choice, and I'm embracing that choice, that I put money into this project, and I know that it's not necessarily going to recuperate. I'm not going to suddenly have enough money for my second issue. So, but
You
This
make a
is
commitment and you make a goal and you drive, and it's the cost of creation. It's what any entrepreneur soon discovers after the start of
right,
their first, second,
right.
or even their third venture. That
That's
no,
right.
it comes a point in time where it doesn't matter how much money you have, it doesn't matter how good you are. There's only
Hmm.
24 hours in a day, and you've got to
Right,
use a few of those to sleep.
right. It's true. And if your name is on the dotted line like mine is, I own all of my rights. So therefore, but that means I have to do much of the work to get things going. I have to be that person to do all the work.
Oh, you
So
have to wear multiple mini hats.
you have to wear multiple many hats. That's exactly it. So there hasn't been a point in which it got easier. Somewhat the contrary, and yet here I am still doing it, and I want to do it, and I'm happy doing it. And I like going to the conventions, and I like meeting the people, and I like chatting with people like Doc here about comic books and friends, everybody.
Well, and the comic book community is still the community it was back in the 80s. There is a
Yeah.
lot of division in it, and there's a division anywhere you look. But when
Hmm.
it gets into the indie comics and the creation, now this is just my opinion now, take it for what it's will, but your indie creators and people like me and you and the passion projects we pull on, it's not like we're rich and we have a whole bunch of money that we're just throwing into it. No, it's we're the ones that decide not to go out and buy that brand new Ferrari or that Mustang and dump all sorts of money into it in the garage every weekend, where we would go ahead and much rather spend our time on the computer, and instead of creating a more powerful muscle car or Fast and Furious cars, which is my day job and everything. I deal with a lot of automobiles, so I
Uh-huh,
see
uh-huh.
the amount of tens of thousands of dollars that people put into their cars.
Right.
Um, I have no problems driving a Kia or, a Chevy, stock.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
need to get there fast. I just like to get there safely,
Right.
and different things like that. So instead of those, I I I'm gonna use the word hobby very, very loosely, because anybody that's deep into any kind of a project or their love or their passion
Hmm.
doesn't classify it as a hobby.
Oh no, no. It's a way of life. It's a way
Yes.
of life. More so, much more so than a hobby. It's a way of life. You can't separate Alex from the comic creator. It is. I am that down to the marrow of my bones.
Do your friends and family get tired of hearing about Dragon Whisperer? Or do you not share too much of it with them on your
I
creation side?
I don't share too much of him because I'm I'm in, I'm despite this extroverted persona that I am now eschewing to you. I'm showing you. I am somewhat nervous about it. I've never read a review of my work. I know,
Oh,
great. I've never once, and I'm too scared. So I share with people with whom I don't have a life stake in. Like I share, I don't consciously know if my wife read my comic book. I don't want to know if she did because I'm just be too embarrassed to hear what she has to say. She might love it, she might not, but but I share it with people in the world who are comic book people who are my audience. Um, but yeah, I try to limit the comic book talk around family for sure because it's like I can just keep going and going and going.
yeah, I think I may have fallen into that little ravine that I've beat them so hard with it that now my kids love it. My comic book's a lot more adult oriented, but I'm also have a lot older children. Um,
Uh-huh.
and my adult children actually love my comic book, and they just proofed my issue number 2 for me.
Hmm.
And yeah, the critiques from loved ones when you get them and they're like, "This is stupid. Is this supposed to
Right.
be funny?"
Yeah.
And
I
you're like,
know.
"Oh, no. Do I missed the mark that far? Ooh,
Right.
back up, back up, back up." It's kinda ki yeah, yeah, I've had to reel it back in and
Hmm.
only share it to him in little nibbles I've learned.
Right.
So you
Right.
started off on the right foot with that. I was so excited I would talk your ear off about my comic book, and I didn't care who you were.
Right. Yep. Yep. I keep it amongst the comic peeps. I keep it within the biz as much as possible.
Yeah, well, you have a wonderful piece of artwork there. I did, like I said, gave it a good thorough overview of the first download that I got from you, and
Hmm.
then I kind of cheated a little bit. And what I actually did is last night I decided to go ahead and look at your motion comic you put up.
Oh,
Uh,
great.
the one that you put out there on YouTube, which you did an incredible job. Did you do that yourself, or did you have to go ahead and farm that out?
I did everything myself except for the voice work. Thank you very much.
I'm working on animation now, so yes, no, you deserve that. Yes.
Thank you very much. Yeah, if you look up Dragon Whisperer on YouTube, you're going to see a motion comic of the first issue. Nothing's articulated, so nobody moves, but there's dissolves of the panels, and I got another dear friend from that I've known forever to do many of the male voices, and I have a daughter of a dear friend who's now a dear friend. She's a great artist. She did the voice of Rosalinda and some of the young people voices, and I brought in the special effects and just some music, but
now you've got a very interesting intro
in.
of that video. Do you mind if we play a few minutes of it right here, just so people can kind of see what's going on with it?
Please do.
I really actually enjoyed the front. Let me see if I can't get through. Here it is. So let's
hold up. If you're watching the clock, Silverline starts at 8.
Yep.
We have to.
We're just going to play a few minutes.
Just remember.
No, what's up, Pops?
Got to be clear of the studio before 8.
Gotcha. I got you.
Okay.
Just a minute of it.
Our story begins. 13-year-old Rosalinda Eberhardt's magic is her amazing dialect. She can communicate with beasts, conventional and fantastic. When Captain Alexander Falk and his band of sky privateers discover her miraculous gift, they take her along on their quest for the most valued game, a dragon. She sets off, accompanied by her wise ferret, Bob, cloud sailing on Falk's air frigate, the Carina. There's more. Captain Falk has a forbidding curse and will never rest until he finds his dragon. A grim affliction, since there is one dragon left, completely hidden in the story's clockwork world known as Gulda. Worse still, Falk's eternal nemesis, the foul Captain Opio Raven, with his giant clockwork and steam goblin, Ack, on his formidable air galleon, the Grey Worm, also covets a dragon. The dragon, deep within the caves of his sky island, is no fool. He knows he's being hunted. Rosalinda, the Dragon Whisperer, is the key to these treacherous pursuits. Our story continues.
Hey, thanks for sharing that. That's my
No,
friend.
I really
Matt.
actually enjoyed that one. Looking through it, you did an incredible job. I'm playing with the editing and everything now, and it's definitely a little bit more challenging than I first gave it credit for.
A lot of work.
Thank you very much for coming on. We've got just a couple of minutes before we need to go ahead and get on into the next show. So what we're going to do is I'm going to say thank you. And any last words you want to share with us?
Thank you. And everyone, comic books are a medium. They are not a genre. What people call comic book movies, like the Avengers, those are superhero movies. A comic book is a medium, just like a book is a medium, just like music is a medium, just like film is a medium. You can do a comic book about anything. It is a medium. Do a Western, do a romance, do anything you want. You don't have to do anything fantastical. You could make it everyday mundane. It's a medium. So, and it's a beautiful medium, and it's unique, and it has its own beauty to it that is not present in other media.
It's an industry that we want to go ahead and make sure we keep alive and running.
That's right. Done by human beings.
Yes, not by this AI.
Correct. Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time, Alex. We're going to go ahead and wind down with one more sponsor, and we will hand the show over to the next. Thank you so much.
Thank you.